About time it is sports anime. Hey, what is going on everybody? My name is Payne and welcome to another anime review video. This one is pretty special because it's a sports anime review video. Now, I think I've mentioned this probably once before, but the one thing that I like more than anime is sports. It's something that I want to do as a profession, is to go broadcast some sport somewhere around the world. I really don't care. So when it comes to making videos on this channel, it is no surprise that eventually that I'll be reviewing sports anime. But I never expected, nor was I ever surprised, that the first sports anime that I was going to review was going to be one of the most iconic and controversial sports anime ever. But anyway, let's get on with today's review. I got my Las Vegas Golden Knights hat that can barely fit the hair on my head, and I got a baseball jersey for a school who doesn't have a baseball team anymore. Here is Yuri on Ice with 3 exclamation points. Yuri on Ice was directed by Sayo Yamamoto and was made by the studio MAPPA, who also made Kids on the Slope and Punchline. My review of Punchline down in the description below. It aired in the fall of 2016 and consisted of 12 episodes. Although no manga was made before or after the show, it was announced that there was going to be a movie made around Yuri on Ice, but the only thing that was announced about it was that it won't be a compilation film of the series, which means that no footage from the series will be used in the film, which is normally a good thing. It shows new stuff. But now on to the actual show. If you were paying attention to anime during the fall of 2016 or later 2016 rather than the presidential election, there was no way in holy hell that you were going to avoid this show. This show became infamous for a number of reasons. First, its depiction of same-sex relationships. It was praised basically just by showing same-sex relationships in general, especially in a hostile environment such as figure skating in Japan, where in most prefectures and cities, same-sex marriage is illegal, while it's also been criticized because it was deemed unrealistic or that it wasn't explicit, that they didn't actually show any sign at all that, they were in a same-sex relationship. It also was huge because it attracted a huge online following on websites such as Twitter and Tumblr, and it became known as one of the most talked about anime of 2016, which is very surprising considering that it came out late in the year and that it was probably fueled by the amount of social media that some of the characters use. One of the most notable incidents in recent anime history happened regarding this show, and it's about the performance it had during the 2017 Crunchyroll Anime Awards, which was on in February of 2017. It was the first year Crunchyroll did it, and Yuri on Ice won an award in all 7 categories that it was nominated in. Although some Crunchyroll users complained that the show won awards that it didn't deserve, especially Best Animation, and accused fans of Yuri on Ice of rigging the vote, other people defended the awards, saying that there was no conclusive evidence to prove that any Yuri on Ice fans did anything, while Crunchyroll stated on Twitter that they used strong anti-cheating methods to determine who won fairly, so in the end, we really don't know why they won so many awards. Or is this show really that good? Now it's time to see what all the fuss is all about with Yuri on Ice. So the story follows a 23-year-old Japanese figure skater by the name of Yuri Katsuki as he develops mixed feelings about his career in figure skating after an awful performance at the Grand Prix final just weeks prior. And in response, while thinking about his career choice, he goes back home to his hometown of Hetsetsu in Kyushu in Japan. Yuri visits his childhood friend Yuko, who owns an ice rink in the city, and perfectly mimics an advanced skating routine performed by his idol, which is Russian figure skating champion Viktor Nikiforov. When secretly recorded footage of his performance was uploaded onto the internet, it got viral, and it caught Viktor's attention as he traveled to Japan and offered to coach Yuri and revive his figure skating career. Later, it's revealed towards the end of the series that in an after-party in the Grand Prix final the year prior that Yuri was familiar with Viktor, or in this case, Viktor was familiar with Yuri, having met him before, where Yuri got drunk and asked Viktor to be his coach. Then enter 15-year-old Russian prodigy skater Yuri Poletsky, who, after learning about Viktor's career decision, travels to Japan to make Viktor keep a promise that was made prior to the beginning of the series, which was that if Yuri Poletsky ever became a pro, that Yuri would coach him. Also, for the rest of the series, because that both characters are named Yuri, I'm going to call Yuri Katsuki Yuri, and I'm going to call Yuri Poletsky what they call him in the series, which is Yurio. Victor, having forgotten the promise to Yurio, which is a complete troll thing to do, he makes the two Yuri's compete against each other to decide who he will coach. To make things short, Yuri's performance wins, and Victor becomes Yuri's coach, while Yurio returns to Russia, and both Yuri's vow to win the Grand Prix championship. Throughout the series, both Yuri and Yurio qualify to represent their countries in the Grand Prix series, and then later qualify for the Grand Prix final in Barcelona, Spain. Over the course of the Grand Prix, Victor and Yuri become increasingly close, including a couple of instances of where Yuri bought Victor what looked like gold rings in Barcelona, with Victor confusing them for engagement rings, and easily one of the most iconic scenes that actually helped Yuri on Ice win a Crunchyroll Anime Award for the best kiss, which was, from what it looks like, Yuri and Victor after Yuri performed seemingly kissing in public, but all the screen footage of them kissing was obscured, thus ambiguous, which led to a bunch of censorship allegations towards MAPPA and the director Yamamoto. On the eve of the final, Yuri decides that he was going to quit figure skating so Victor can return to the sport, and when he tells Victor, Victor doesn't like it, and they both decide to do a compromise. And they both compromised and said that they were going to decide what their career choice was after the Grand Prix final was over. The Grand Prix final ends in Yuri getting second place and Yurio getting first, with both Victor and Yuri deciding to go back to skating. And the series ends with Yuri going to St. Petersburg, Russia to train with Yurio and Victor, and in my best assumption is where the movie is going to pick up from. While the show highlights Victor, Yuri, and Yurio as the main characters, others in the show also got some recognition as well, such as the other skaters that either Yuri is friends with and or is competing with, as it gave the show a sense of ethnicity. For example, with most of the cast being Russian, this technically doesn't count the figure skaters, but it just felt like something I needed to mention, and that the lone American skater is Latino. Throughout the series, you can see that each of these competitors have their own unique talent, skating style, and personality that really brings the show to a larger-than-life aura. In addition to their unique backstories and goals off the ice, coming into the series, there was one skater who was very narcissistic, but eventually learns how to be better, or how to not be narcissistic at the end of the series, to another skater who was very overprotective of his little sister because a bunch of guys keep going to her, and that he always wanted her to be at every skating event, and he needed to learn that she doesn't need to be at every event. But what's most impressive about these characters is how each of them tries their best to impress the audience and viewers, as they all have reasons to win and to be the best that they can be. And one thing that I think is interesting is that not all the skaters have the same amount of screen time. Some have way more screen time than others, but regardless, all of their backstories are told really well. All of their stories that they tell, all of the events that happen, regardless if it's one episode or 3 episodes, they're all told with the same amount of information being given out to the viewer. I think that was pretty cool, and as the show has that sports competitive atmosphere every now and then, the audience will definitely notice the character relationships, as it can be very human and fierce at times. At its core, Yuri and Victor will draw the most attention in the show. Even at times, the show pushes the yaoi tones to overdrive. However, it really shouldn't hold anyone back from watching the show, because Yuri on Ice is just more than a fan service show, as the way it capitalizes on the competition, the characters, the visual dynamics, themes, and directing is worth every minute. And even the pacing works out quite well, as it doesn't waste much time getting to the point, which would make sense considering that the show is only 12 episodes. The comedy as well is also straightforward, and although can get rather awkward at times, it still effectively delivers with character chemistry and reaction faces, especially towards Yuri. And in retrospect, it's also a show that is here to entertain. It is a show that is here to entertain rather than be a fan service show. Yuri on Ice, in my opinion, is built on creativity and realism. There's many sides you can see this, but the most prominent elements that make this show stunning is the directing, is Yamamoto. If you look closely at the show, the human body movements is directed at a very intense level. Every time a skater enters the rink and performs, we can see how the camera angles capture every movement. Each skater has their own unique style as well, and it also spells out their personality with their performance. Not only their performance as well, but also the way they dress and the music they performed to. Quality-wise, the show also has a very strong production from its setting, from character designs, even the choreography, which we'll get into that later. The story of the choreography in this show is also pretty interesting. And next, if this show wasn't impressive enough, Yuri on Ice also excels with its soundtrack. The opening song, known as History Maker by Dean Fujioka, in my opinion, is one of the best openings I've ever heard. It is a huge motivator, and it is something we don't really hear that much. It's a song that is sung in English instead of Japanese. And I don't know why, but out of all the English singing openings, or endings, or any anime songs in general, this one sticks out to me. Probably because it's meant to motivate people. It is a song about someone who was born to make history. It's a song that's perfect for the show. As well as the opening, the soundtrack in general also knows how to impress the audience with the character movements that supplements with their style. This is the soundtrack with the music that the figure skaters perform to. One thing that I thought that was very interesting about it was that the soundtrack was also very popular among professional figure skaters, as in multiple instances during this past year's Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea, there were a number of figure skaters who actually performed to songs from this soundtrack. The character voice mannerisms throughout the show is also memorable, but however, what's most important is that the soundtrack, voice, and theme songs bring out the best of this show to a realistic level. Even though that they are professional figure skaters, we can also see how human they are through their music. And in this scenario, it is top-notch, really good. So there was also an interesting production strategy when it came to recording the audio for the skaters when they were out on the ice, and it required the help of former Japanese Olympic figure skater Kenji Miyamoto. In the skating scenes, the sound effects were changed to match each venue according to the building's capacity and crowd size. The skating sounds for each sequence were recorded separately, and no stock sounds were used because each part sounds different, and no actual footage of professional skaters were used because the music in the programs normally muffle the sounds. Thus, the sounds used were recorded and performed by Miyamoto, the figure skater, and each skating sequence is unique to the program, which meant that Miyamoto actually traveled to the realistic version or the inspiration for some of these ice rinks around the world and recorded himself skating, sent the audio to MAPPA, and it was used in the show. And this is something that, considering it wasn't an adaptation from a manga or anything, this is a pretty interesting strategy. It is a pretty interesting strategy, and I hope I get to see more of it in the future, not just from sports anime. The one thing I gotta say that's a little iffy when it comes to this show is the animation, for a couple of reasons. The first one is the amount of key animators that MAPPA used for the show, as according to a study, Yuri on Ice had more key animators than any show during the fall 2016 season, as it had an average of 48.5 key animators per episode. It used hundreds. This is the mean number of animators per episode, so that's why it says 0.5. In the early episodes, and also in the early episodes of the series, each character was handled by a different key animator, meaning that the skating style of the characters differed from each other, like you want to hear that part again. Even when Yuri tries to copy Victor's moves, the way that he moves is so fundamentally different, and it's obvious, and that is one example to show that there are different animators for each of the characters. The second reason is in regards to the Best Animation Award and why people think that they shouldn't have won it, and it is because there were a few Yuri on Ice fans who have actually discovered that MAPPA used the same skating scenes from one part of the series into another part of the series. For example, there is a scene of Yuri skating, like just practice skating. Basically what they did is that they copied and pasted the scene, but they changed the setting, they changed the music, and they changed the outfit that he was wearing. So in a way, it was a pretty clever way to try and slip through the cracks there to get the award. But for the animation department, just to make it simple, I'm going to give them plus 50 for the number of animators that were used, and I'm going to give them about minus 100 for the skating scenes, because that was just lazy. Coming into the show, I had very high expectations with the talented staff involved, and I ended the show being mostly satisfied, with the exception of a few reasons. First, the animation. Second, I concluded with the show it's good, but it's basically overrated. And the third one is the fact that they hint so much at Yuri and Victor being in a relationship, yet they don't actually say anything. But other than that, I thought it was pretty good. I just don't think that it deserved as much attention as it did. In other words, the show is a good example of something that is really good, but is super overrated. And to prove my point, I'm going to give Yuri on Ice an 8 out of 10. There's a lot of people out there that don't like me putting an 8 out of 10 on there, but you know, that's just my personal opinion. It's, in my opinion, a really good sports anime. I just don't think that it's as good as people say it is. It's not a masterpiece. And so, minus all the controversy, it's actually a pretty good show. Thank you guys for watching my Yuri on Ice review. If you like this video, hit the like button down below. If you want to subscribe to my channel, the subscribe button is on the screen, and on the screen as well, there is also a couple more anime review videos that you like to watch. So, anyway, just to finish this off, my name is Payne, and we'll see you in the next anime review video.